you're addressing?
Well, I'll give you a flavor for what happened. If you came from the ellipse to hear President Trump's speech and you went to the east side of the Capitol, you showed up, Capitol police officers were holding the doors open, having people walk in, waving them in like this, and then shaking their hands, fist bumping them, high-fiving them, getting selfies taken with them. If you walked in there for even 6 seconds, we've got one guy who was in for 6 seconds. Then sometime down the road, the FBI wakes you up at 6 o'clock in the morning with kicking your door in. You open the door. There's 30 SWAT guys in full combat gear. You got laser dots all over you from their sights. Your 4-year-old kids have got laser dots all over.
There are tanks in your yard.
Tanks in your yard, helicopters flying around. Misdemeanor trespass charges for which they haul you off to jail. Some people did 6 months. A lot of people did 6 months in federal prison for misdemeanor trespass after the cops waved them into the Capitol building. And there are people that got, if you actually did anything like you resisted being killed, at about 2:20 p.m. on January 6th, when there's about 1 million people around the Capitol building, all of a sudden, Capitol Police and Metro cops, for no apparent reason, started launching grenades into the crowd, rubber bullets. And one guy got if you think rubber bullets are harmless, this one guy get with a rubber bullet right through his cheek and knocked out his teeth, right? Big hole in the side of his face. Those flashbang grenades are not benign things. They were blowing people's faces off. I mean, they're explosive devices. And then they started tear gassing. This is a fun part. At about 2:20, the Metro cops start releasing tear gas, but the wind's blowing towards them. And so they just gassed all themselves, and then everybody went berserk. If a cop hit you with a truncheon, which they started doing right then, if you put your hand up to block it, if the truncheon hits your hand, that was described as assault on a police officer.
That you were assaulting a police officer, right?
If they got a still picture of your hand on a baton like that, that was, you got charged with assault with a dangerous or deadly weapon on a federal officer. That got you years in prison. There were some guys who spent 1,400 days in prison. Some guys did 1,100 days in solitary confinement for doing essentially nothing. We represent one guy named Derek Vargo. He was trying to set up a big Trump flag. The cop just comes. He's 30 feet up on the steps, just shoves him for no reason, knocks him down 30 feet, broke both his legs, head injury, whole business. I mean, and I guarantee you.
Well, how do you have the greeting crowd who is waving everybody in, bumping hands, and they're the cops, the same cops now in the next part of the building. What kind of a show is this where they're beating you up all of a sudden?
Well, and that's what everybody we've talked to said, that they get invited in. For whatever reason, there were no restrooms anywhere, even though there are 1 million people on the mall. Everybody's trying to find a restroom. I can't tell you how many J6s I've talked to that came into the Capitol just to be able to use the restroom and would ask the cop on the way in, where's the toilet? And he'd tell them where you go down here, you take a right, then you take a left, use the toilets. And then all of a sudden, somebody gave the command to start beating people. And all of a sudden, the cops start clubbing everybody.
There's no command to leave the area. It was just straight attack by the police.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just
amazing.
They lured them in, then they beat them, and then they charged them with felonies for defending themselves.
And where were the lawyers that were supposed to be able to represent people before they went to jail?
Well, here's the best part of it, right? Almost all the public defenders were Democrats that told our clients, "You deserve to be in prison. You should confess that you're all insurrectionists. You belong in jail." And the judges in almost all these cases would say at sentencing. Here's another part, right? If you got charged with assaulting a police officer, which almost everybody did, the police officer would never come in to testify at your trial, right, or your plea hearing. They would say, "I don't remember this guy. No, he never touched me." And then at sentencing, those exact same officers would come in. This is after you plead guilty. Then the cops come in at sentencing and say, "He beat me severely, wounded." That gets you 5 more years, right?
So it's all a